husband Scott and I are co-founders of a podcasting network called Inspired News Radio, and we help new podcasters get started. We've got we help the newbies, and we also work with people who are already established. And we've been doing this for, let's see, 2 years, well, a little bit longer than that, and just love it, because all we want to do is uplift women and others, men too, and but we want to help them get their positive message out to the world. So that's the theme and the mission of our group. So nice to be here.
Awesome. How about you, Scott? You have anything you want to add?
Oh yeah, he does.
So I started in radio, terrestrial radio, about 30 years ago or more, when I was in college, and I've kind of, it's been a love of mine for a lot of time. And then my wife decided she wanted to open an internet radio station. So I said, okay, put me down for a show. So I do 2 podcasts every week, one called Mind Your Own Business and one called Sales with Sully, where I actually take my 30 years of sales and marketing expertise and bring it out into a half-hour show. And then Mind Your Own Business is an interview show where I interview successful people and entrepreneurs, CEOs, people that are kind of like on their way or have already made it to a level of success. So, and then we share those stories with the world every week. So I'm super glad to be here, and I coach people from that have never done a podcast to people that have been doing it for years and just want to get more followers and want to figure out how to monetize it.
Awesome. So, Scott and Susan, I'm so grateful that you guys are able to hop on with us today. We're going to be a really, really tight half hour, and I have so many questions that have been submitted by our audience. So I'm gonna just ask everybody, I'm gonna ask our panelists if you can unmute. Marianne, will you introduce yourself?
I'm Marianne Pack, and I have mariannepack.com. I am a spiritual guide and holistic life coach. I have started this year, I got interested in doing some lives. So I actually started with some Facebook lives. I call them Coffee and Convo Live. And they're once a month on the second Sunday most of the time until they run into a holiday. But it just sparked such an interest. I started actually just by myself taking questions and comments. And then I started interviewing people. I have had Davia and a couple other people and another one scheduled for this coming month. So it just got me so excited. I'm so exhilarated when I do it that I want to turn it into a podcast. So.
Yeah, well, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to take the content that you already have, and we're going to turn it into podcast episodes. And then that way you don't have to do additional work. So that's going to be really, really great. Raylene, how about you? I know your podcast just started. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going all right. I mean, I guess I had a fantasy that it would pick up a lot faster, but it's, developing a little bit of a following. It's only been 6 weeks. And it was just a matter of just doing it. There were so many questions of how to do it and why to do it. And then I just like, you know what, the hell with it, I'll just do it. And it will evolve into what it's supposed to be.
And you know what, that's one of the things. Sometimes the idea is to put in the action. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you get better at it as you go along. So I'm really happy that you started that. Angel, so happy to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long. Happy to see like a year. Face. And tell us about your relationship with podcasting.
I don't have one yet, and that's awesome because I have a lot of content. I was one of those adopters of Facebook Live pretty early, and I learned how to transmute that to my YouTube channel, and I'm helping my son do the same. But I'd love to know how to repurpose all that content that I've already got into a new medium that it's all brand new world for me. So this is awesome. I appreciate you letting us, the newbies, be here too.
Yes, because, that's how I think that's how we get the questions is certainly having all sorts of different perspectives, the veterans, the newbies, the ones who are thinking about doing it, if we all come together, my impression is so far that when we all come together, our results are way better than if we'd all tried to do it by ourselves individually. So I'm gonna go around the group and I'm gonna ask you, Scott and Susan, just to tell me about, I know you started, Scott, in doing radio shows, but what was that transition to podcasting like?
Well, the interesting thing is that going from terrestrial radio to podcasting means you're not doing it live. When you're sitting in a studio, I used to have to get in the car, drive to the studio, sit in a booth, basically a broadcasting booth, and then you had controls in front of you, and sometimes you had a producer on the other side of the glass, and then you actually had to, what you said went out over the air, and it was like it was live and it was there, and there was really no way of coming back to that content unless you recorded it and mailed it out to somebody, because in terrestrial radio, it was just gone. It was lost forever. And then the transition to podcasts made it fantastic, because at 2:00 in the morning, I could walk into my spare bedroom. I could record my thoughts or my ideas, put them into a format, a little bit of engineering, depending on how professional you want the show to sound. And then you could stick them up on a website, and, people can then download them, stream them. All of a sudden it became, media on demand, and life just got totally different, because now it's all about, impressions and clicks and streaming and pass-throughs and all the other things, where before all we had was the Nielsen rating, which was based on the demographics of how far you could reach on that antenna. So it's really been, it's been a really good transition, I think. And plus the barrier to entry is almost zero, because in terrestrial radio, you had to get hired and trained, and you had to have something to say, even on talk radio, where now it's to build a following. And now, like I think it was Angel said, or no, Raylene said, you basically start your program and you start building your tribe just by doing your own marketing. And all of a sudden, if you have something that resonates with people, they'll come and listen, and it makes it really nice. I mean, it's a really interesting way to get your ideas and your thoughts into the world now.
That's awesome. I totally agree with you. And what has stood out for me as far as podcasts go is that people are using them while they could do just about anything else. Like, literally, you could listen to the podcast in the bathroom, on your drive to work. you could listen to a podcast anywhere. And so that means that your audience is suddenly exploded, because there's time in their day that they didn't realize they had before, where they can consume this content that they're looking for, and they actively choose you. The other thing that was mind-blowing to me is that active users, active subscribers on Apple Podcasts is 1 billion. That's billion with a B.
Yes.
That's just Apple Podcasts. We're not talking about like all the other streaming services that are available. So it seems to me like if you're doing anything else and you're putting out any kind of content, there is an opportunity to add podcasting into the mix.
Absolutely. The statistic that I just read last week was, at any given day, not counting the ones that are new ones being added and old ones that are no longer uploaded, there are 750,000 podcasts available on Apple iTunes every single day. So it is a big sea, it's a big ocean, and you're a teeny little boat in that ocean, but there is a huge opportunity for people to see and listen to you.
Yep. And I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a tiny, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you're a tiny boat in the ocean, because suddenly the ocean got a whole lot bigger, because now it's international. So, okay, maybe you can handle 10 clients in your practice, but now suddenly your 10 clients don't have to just come from your geographic location. They could come from anywhere. I mean, we have Ladies Lunch, Ladies Power Lunch members who are in the UK, and members who are in the Caribbean and members who are in Canada. And we're just a little pod here in Connecticut, but the internet has made it so that we can all stay connected. So I want to dive right into finding out what are, and I'll start with Raylene. Actually, no, I'm not going to start with Raylene. I'm going to start with Sandra Santorino because she jumped on late, but she's one of our panelists. And Sandra, I'm so happy to see you. I am really, really happy to see you. Let's just leave it at that. But
it's really me.
This
is the incarnation of Sandra Santorino #2.
I know.
I'm writing a book on this, by the way. This will be my second novel.
Very good. So I know that you have a hit podcast on Amazon, and you've been doing your podcast every single day for 800.
No, guess what today is?
What's today?
900. Yep.
Yay, Sandra.
I've podcasted more than I brushed my teeth days in a row. No, I'm not that close. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
They're even. Yeah.
No, that's really good. And, it speaks to that consistency. And I like that. I would ask you, what are your recommendations for somebody to have a hit podcast?
Pick something that is easy to talk about, that you are totally all in on, that you love. And back in December of 2017, when I found out what a flash briefing was and who Alexa was, we talked to Alexa and we ask her what the weather is and all that stuff. But I never knew that a mini version of a podcast, and it still can be called a podcast, it's 10 minutes or under, is called a flash briefing. So someone told me about it. People that know me know that I have FOMO and I have to know everything about everything. And I kind of Googled it and I said, this is an untapped area of a giant playground called Amazon where no one is yet. So wouldn't you want to be the first one to the club and be really damn good at it? So in December of 2017, one of my mentors at the time said, Sandra, I think you should do a flash briefing. They're like mini podcasts. And of course I said yes, because I was saying yes to everything back then. But I started kind of second guessing myself, Tavia, saying, what could I possibly talk about that people would want to hear about? And what could I talk about that could bring me back every day and bring back as well? So yes, I'm a live video pro and I can give tips to the end of the earth, but that kind of gets dull and boring after a while. So what is it that I do every day that I'm kind of made of, right? And that is positivity. I call myself the positivity practitioner. And for 5 years now, I've journaled and I have meditated. So I've got these streaks going. I think it's an ADHD thing, but that's good. I'll call it a superpower. So I said, every day I meditate and pray and sit in silence, and something kind of comes to me. And whatever that is that comes to me, I'll journal about, I'll kind of start thinking about, and it kind of just connects with me. So I wonder if I could come up with something that I could come live with every day and incorporate that, because that's a no-brainer. So many of us are like, oh, content, I have to come up with something and it has to be this. And this is a no-brainer. You pray every day, you meditate every day, you're all about positivity. Whatever comes to your mind, Sandra, click the damn button and do a flash briefing. So I never in a million years thought I would do 900 in a row without missing in a day. I was in St. Lucia recording them. I probably had laryngitis in maybe one of them, but come rain or shine, no matter what was happening, I was coming and showing up and doing this because not only do I love it, but it's what I'm all about. But what the magic part of it was, when we put ourselves out there on a podcast and it goes to 1 million people, I missed the beginning, but it goes to a lot of people, whether it's a flash briefing or on Apple or on Spotify or wherever we are, we don't really even think about how our voice and whatever our message is on that podcast can affect another life. We kind of don't really think nothing of it. I know a lot of us don't. And I didn't in the beginning. I just did it and I showed up. But when these little angels came forward, these testimonials, these strangers from around the globe, and they would send me private messages saying, I heard your dose of positive energy, which again, that was my title I came in with. and I was going through cancer treatment, and your positive message brought me through cancer. I just dropped everything, and I was just like, I'm like looking around like, what is happening here? So that was the true test to me that yes, I have an audience. Yes, I just took something simple that I absolutely love that I do every day. And yes, people are going to listen and they're going to come back and it's going to build. And 900 days later, I'm thinking I'm all in because I haven't given up. And, you know, we just have to take our message, whatever that gift is, whatever that podcast is about, and believe 100% if we show up, it's going to have reactions. And it might be business contacts, it could be a collaboration, or it could be a stranger in Georgia that says, you know, you helped her get through cancer treatment. That's the one, that's even way more important than me than a business, you know, someone bought your course because they heard your thing. When those kind of things happen, it just reassures you that you should be putting your voice out there, whether it's a podcast or a flash briefing. All the other social media stuff is important, but our voice is really the key. Someone needs to hear us. Someone needs to hear our message, and just do it. And you'll be very surprised what happens after you commit to it and you show up and you go all in. So yeah, that just came right off my tongue.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. I really got that you need to be consistent. I got that you need to do something that you feel really passionate about, something that you can continue to talk about. And I got that you need to show up. You need to not hide behind insecurities, because the message that you're giving might be something that somebody needs as a lifeline and you never even know it. Somebody way across the other side of the world could be having a really bad day, and the thing that you're putting out could be the thing that helps them. So never underestimate the power of your voice. I love that. Lachelle, I'm going to draw you into this conversation. I'm going to invite you to unmute yourself. First, I want to say thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast the other day. That was also tons of fun. And let's ask you this question. What is your recommendation for actually reaching your target audience?
Okay, so for me, I use the Anchor platform, and I encourage everybody first, if you're deciding if this is something you want to stay in full time or whatever, you know, start there because it's free. They will put you on different platforms and things of that nature. How I just organically built my following was through my contacts. So I have an acronym for the word voice. So I'm gonna go ahead and share that with everybody.
Lachelle, before you move into that, can you just tell everybody where you are in the world?
Awesome. Okay, so I'm in Georgia, and I am a lifestyle designer. Overcome depression, and I use podcasting as a platform in order for me to connect with different people to kind of do that.
Thank you.
So my acronym for voice is, first you have to have a vision. Okay, so you have to know what it is that your message is. What are you trying to share? So mine is basically one of just positivity. Right now I'm doing a Corona Chronicle series about, you know, overcoming this pandemic with tips, tricks, hacks from different people in my network. The next thing is to be original. So there's a lot of podcasters out there, but just knowing that, just being, just like Sandra said, you know, what is your voice? What is it that you're bringing to the table that sets you apart from everybody else? The next thing is being innovative. You know, she talked about flash briefings. You know, I use my podcast as a lead magnet. So that's just something that I use to build people into my email list and to network in future opportunities. The next thing is content. This is so key. This is information that you could use later on to repurpose. So just like me and you did our podcast, we could turn that into a blog. We can do a Facebook Live about some of the subject content. And then the last thing is really highlighting your expertise. So, and the case with you, you were highlighting the fact that you're a doctor, you know, that you also have a community. And so you're able to really kind of lead the listener to where you want them to go based on the content that you share on the podcast. So that's a little bit about my take on getting the reach.
Awesome. I love that. The next question that we got from our audience was, do you have any podcasting best practices? And Susan, would you mind if I throw this one to you? Podcasting best practices, but you need to unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, podcasting best practices. Well, something that we really find that helps the folks that we work with, and that helps Scott as he records his, is that they kind of batch their podcasts together. And I know Sandra does it every day, and that is amazing. I mean, to get that energy up and get out there and share. But we have a lot of folks that they'll work over the weekend, and they'll get that energy. They'll work out their content in advance, of course, and then they'll just power through sharing their message that maybe has some kind of relativity to what their business is, and how this is a way for their audience to get to know them before they actually do business with them. And so that's one thing that we've found that our hosts really love to do, is to kind of batch some of their episodes. And also that can work into a really cool series idea if they sit down and just think about that content and really be kind of not thinking about 1 or 2 or 3 in advance, but really thinking about their whole schedule and how they want to present that.
I love that, Susan. I am one of those, and I think Sandra knows this about me. I like to plan things, and I like to know exactly what we're going to do. I'm not the play it fast and loose kind of girl, even though there are many, many times when I build my parachute on the way down out of the plane. But I really, really do like to have things planned out. So the idea of having a content calendar that is built out for an extended period of time, that really, really feels good to me. And it also feels safe to me. It like gives me a framework within which to develop my content, so that I don't feel like on the spur of the moment, on the fly, kind of hesitant to share my message. So I love that. Scott, do you have any best practices you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to, planning. I love that. I think the dreaded Sunday night that you've put it off so far that Sunday night you've got to go do a podcast is just horrible, because then your creativity is not flowing. One of the things I would suggest is get a notebook, keep it with you everywhere, nightstand, when you're sitting watching TV, if you're watching a movie, wherever you are, keep it with you. Keep your ideas and thoughts. Say, hey, that would make a great podcast. Write it down, get it on a spreadsheet, and put it in weeks in advance. Plan your calendar, put the idea down for at least, 2 or 3 or 4 months in advance. You can always move them, shift them around, and you can create that. But write a little bit of synopsis about what it is right there on the spot. Today I'm going to be talking about positivity. And some of us do it every day, evidently. I don't know how you do it, but that's fantastic. But if positivity is your topic for this week, put that down and then put a little blurb about it in your spreadsheet. And then when you come back to have to come up and do a podcast because you're bumping up against a deadline, because we want to be consistent, means you want to do it on a regular basis, then you won't have to struggle for the content. It'll already be there, and you'll have that little germination of a seed of idea, and you can just sit down and hammer it out. But if you keep that notebook, it'll just keep those ideas flowing, and you'll capture them and then be able to transfer those into your content calendar. So that's what I do every week. So I have, if you can see my desk, I have stacks of legal yellow pads with ideas all over them, and then I just turn those into podcasts every week, and I put them on my spreadsheet.
Awesome. I love that. I'm gonna hand over to you, Raylene. So I'm gonna invite you to unmute yourself. And I was wondering, what are some of the things that you would say as a new podcaster? I feel like this is a perfect question for you, because you're kind of navigating the ins and outs right now. What are some of the things that you would say absolutely avoid going forward for anybody who's thinking of having a podcast?
I would avoid overthinking. I spent a lot of time just asking, which of these many platforms there are, which, I just spent so much time in the questions that I probably could have had this out at least a month earlier if I wasn't just worried about what should I do, what should I do, what should I do, knowing full well that these episodes are all recorded, and if I needed to, I could just move it. I could just take the whole thing and put it somewhere else eventually, you know. And I noticed there's this thing with like, well, how do I monetize it, and how do I do this, and how to do that? And well, how about you start by having something to monetize? Just do it. Just
I like
go
that.
out there and do what you need to do. Have an idea and flesh it out. I mean, I've seen already some people, and it's frustrating because I'm on a podcasting group, and somebody's like, oh, I just did my first month and I have 10,000 views already. And I'm just like, I'm politely not flipping anybody off right now. But then in my head, I'm like, what the heck? But then it turns out they were already famous or something. And I'm like, well, then get off this tiny little podcast site, because you're just making the rest of us feel bad about ourselves.
You know, I think you and I were talking about this some time ago, Raylene, and I was saying to you, if one of my things to avoid would be, don't look at your reviews. I would say, or if you do look at your reviews, don't put too much stock in your reviews, because one thing I know for sure is that if you have an opinion and if you are being authentic out in the world, you're not going to have middle of the road opinions about what you're doing. If you're doing it the right way, you're going to have some people who are going to love you. And you're going to have some people who are going to hate you. And so we're mentally built to focus on the negative because evolutionarily, we've been programmed to focus on that so that we avoid that in the future and keep ourselves safe. And so we could have 100 good reviews, and when you get that one bad review, that can really send you spiraling. So my thing to avoid would be, don't look at your reviews. They don't really matter. They really, really don't. Don't let that be the reason that you don't put your content out in the world. Don't let a bad review be the reason that you feel like hesitating about getting out there. Trolls are everywhere, and you know, they're a protected species. So what are you gonna do?
One comment I want to make is just say, I tell people all the time in my coaching, do not look at your analytics for 6 months. Put content out that you love. Don't look at your analytics. Don't just pretend like you're talking to the entire world and that there are millions of people listening, and don't worry about it. Don't, because if you get hung up on the fact is only had 3 listeners yesterday, or I only had, 5, when you get to 10,000, it'll be, I only had 10,000. When you get to 100,000, only had, it just don't, you'll just get so hung up on that. Just don't look at your analytics for 6 months. Go just put great content out that you love. And if you're polarizing, it's even better, because you have there's just as many people that hate you as people that love you. So put out some good opinions and just be passionate about what you love.
Be passionate about what you love. I love that.
The right people will come and the wrong people won't. It'll be all right.
That's
and
true.
even if they hate you, they're listening.
Exactly.
Sandra, you had a comment. I just want to bring you in here. What was your comment, Sandra?
So I'm agreeing with everyone. I forgot who just said it. Now Raylene. It's not about the numbers, people. I'd love to be a famous TED Talk person and have all these people viewing. And I used to think it was always about fame and numbers, because I would watch people like Mari Smith on Facebook thinking I was going to be her. And I got hung up on that for a long time. And I'm sure all of you can relate, because we want to be that. And when I finally hit myself over the head one day and said, what the freak are you doing? You have to be you and go all in on you. And if you have one person that's watching and that person sends you a message saying you touched their life and helped them go through cancer, why are you focusing on the reviews and all the people? In fact, in the beginning, I didn't look at my analytics, but I have to tell you, I got down on myself for a couple of days because I got my first review. To be honest with you, I have 21 reviews on my podcast on Amazon. I don't really give a crap. Other people are like on there going, I want to make it to 100. Go give me 5 stars. Like, give me a review or don't give me a review. I don't really give a crap. But I got a guy, all my bad reviews came from men, so they can just take a hike. Sorry, Scott. But one guy said, she rambles on and self-promotes. I'm like, why don't you play back my 900? I'm pretty sure I've never self-promoted. Besides, if you'd like to check out and connect with me, you can go to realwomengolive.com. It wasn't saying like, sign up for my book. I have a course. And
but
then
guess
another
what?
guy.
It's your podcast. If you wanted to spend the entire podcast saying,
yes,
sign up for my book, sign up for my book, sign up for my book, and saying it in different voices, you're welcome to do that, because it's
so the
your
first guy said I
podcast.
rambled. Then I got another male hater that made fun of my accent. I'm like, how dare you call me from New Jersey? I'm from Boston, but okay. He said, her New Jersey accent is annoying. And I'm like, okay, then have a nice day. But I'm pretty sure it's from Boston. So go listen to my accent again. You know, I got a couple of them, and a couple of friends just laughed. And I mean, I didn't cry and like go into hiding, but I was annoyed.
Yeah.
And I'm positive, right? So I'm trying to brush up. But a couple of my friends like, oh, you're famous now because you're getting people saying crap about you. And I'm like, whatever. I don't want to.
Yep, that's actually a sign that you're famous, actually.
Yeah.
When people start to say things about you, you know you have arrived. So Sandra, welcome.
Yeah.
You have arrived.
Who cares
Sandra,
what they say? And you know what?
Sandra,
they might hate you so much that they delete your Facebook, and life goes on. So there you go.
Sandra, this is Scott. This is Scott. I want to weigh in there and tell you one thing that I have learned over the years. I've been doing this for several years now, and it's like, I will tell you the one thing that's more important than the reviews. And I tell people all the time, if you want to subscribe, go subscribe. But more importantly, send me a direct message. Send me an email. Reach out to me. Connect with me. I'd rather spend an hour on my social media platform talking to people that actually listen to me and actually want to have input in my show than reading a bunch of reviews. So I agree with you. Just connect with me. Connect with me personally. And if you want to put a review up, great. And if you want it to be negative, I don't care either. I'm like you. I love that. I love your attitude. Fantastic. You've got a new fan. I'm already signing up.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I would invite all of you who have podcasts to just drop it in the chat box so that we can have an opportunity to, everybody can follow everybody else and be connected even after we're all done with this podcast today. I want to ask the last question, and you can just unmute yourself and chime in. Do you have any hacks or specific technological pieces that you use or apps that you think podcasters would find really, really helpful? So hacks, tech, apps.
Okay, for me, I'll answer really quick.
Sure.
I'm a mother of 15 and I do a lot of different things. So I guess the best thing for me is an automatic calendar to sign up your guests is one of the things that I do.
Automatic calendar. Awesome. Anybody else? Just unmute yourself, chime in.
Well,
Get a VA. Get a VA today.
Yes.
Get a VA.
I am just going to say, like, anything that you're doing, it doesn't have to be a podcast. It doesn't have to be anything specific. My coach said to me, always have an embarrassing amount of support. And the day you feel like you have too much support, you need to get somebody else, because clearly you're doing too much. Get support. A VA, a OBM, whatever. It's worth it. Wait in gold, guys. Wait in gold.
You will make 3 times as much money and get 100 times more done, because you will stop doing the things that don't give you revenue. You will stop doing those things. Get a VA. As soon as I got a VA in my life changed 100%. I had better quality of life, more money, more time, more ability to reach more people, because the things that you do over and over and over and over again that don't make you any money, you can then delegate that to somebody who loves doing it and they're very passionate about it, and interview lots of VAs and get a good one that fits and make them a partner, not just a task person. Get your VA in early. That's my best hack.
And if anybody needs a VA, go to susansullivan.co.
Now, when you said make them a partner,
being a partner means they really are invested in your business, and they don't just do project work. I've had a VA firm for 17 years, and that's actually how we got into podcasting, because my clients, I wanted to find another way to promote them, another way to get them visibility. And podcasting was just where it was. So that means I had to learn podcasting. And so that's what we did. And it gives so much credibility. Your podcast gives so much credibility. You may not see dollars rolling in from it directly, but your ROI, you can't always see what that is. And just the fact that you're getting out there and you have all that visibility is just so amazing. Our world is so small right now. It's just, it's so small. But yes, so I do have a VA business, and then we also run the radio station through that. But thank you, Scott. You're my publicity manager. I appreciate it. But no,
I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I love my VA so much I married her.
No, wait a minute. It goes the other way around, buddy.
Well, okay. All right. I'm not recommending you marry your VA, but
That should be a podcast title. Just saying. Into that.
Anybody else have any other hacks? We're gonna close out, but any other hacks, any other equipment recommendations?
I use Sound Up now, and I'll put the link. I put the link in there to check out my page with all my podcasts, but I'll make sure I go in there today and put my actual link. I don't make big bucks, but if you click on my link, I think I get like a free service or something per month. So Sound Up now, you can go right on that platform, similar to Anchor, where you just record right on that. You click a button and they do all the work for like a couple of bucks a month. They push it to Amazon. They can even make it a podcast and go to Apple, Spotify, and all the other things. It's easy as pie. It's very simple. And the last thing that I would say is, and this really is just a tip, not an app, don't overthink editing. I've never edited a thing, and that's why I think people are attracted to me, because it's not real. I wouldn't say it's not real professional, but I'm not hung up on having it sound perfect and all these fancy things. Just do it. And, you know, as you go along, maybe you start perfecting things and adding things in, but I'm not even into the editing. I'm unedited. So
I'm gonna recommend that all of you, especially those of you who are on the panel today, I'm going to recommend that you go into the Ladies Power Lunch Facebook group today and just drop in your answers to the questions that the people had been asking, you know, recommendations for reaching your audience, best practices, things to avoid, your hacks, and that sort of thing. And also drop in there the link to how you can be reached so that people can connect with you. Because I promise you that podcasting is a topic that pretty much everybody in our group is having questions about. I feel like there's so many questions, more questions than we could actually handle in this short half hour. And so I'm gonna just leave it there for today, but I'm inviting you guys to come back and maybe we can do a second round of discussing these podcasts. And I absolutely agree with you, Scott. The number one recommendation that I would make is to have a good microphone. Invest some quality in a quality microphone. And when you guys hop on over to our Facebook group, why don't you drop in some recommendations of brands of mics that you think are good? Because just saying to people who've never used a mic before, use a good mic, it's probably not going to be as beneficial as if you put a link to a mic that they can buy today.
And a good mic doesn't mean expensive. You can buy a
True.
Samson makes a really, and this is a unsolicited endorsement for Samson. I have 3 of them sitting here on my desk. And they're less than $60, and they're really, really, really good quality, you know, cordioid mics. They're really great, and learn how to use it. Learn to understand. I see, you know, Sandra, I can tell you already, you know what you're doing, you know,
Blue Snowball.
Or Snowball or Yeti, or there's a ton of them, but you don't have to buy a $300 microphone. You just have to buy one better than the one that came on your laptop.
And I would say have a S filter as well. That would be something I would recommend.
Yes, either a windscreen or an S filter on every mic. Make sure that you understand how to use it. That's why I was saying is learn how to use your microphone and learn the resonance of your own voice. Those kind of things. We can that stuff we cover in the coaching. But hey, if anybody's looking for a guest, I'm available. I'd love to be a guest on your podcast. And the reverse, if you guys want to be a guest on mine, get with Susan. She does all my booking.
And turn your podcast.
Susan could possibly be.
And think about turning your podcast into an Audible book? Because that's happening, people.
Mhm.
Yep.
Exactly.
We're
Got it.
definite. There's so much gold here to be mined. I think, guys, let's do this again soon. I'm gonna reach out to all y'all and let's get deeper into this discussion. Thank you so much for coming. I am so grateful to all our panelists who were able to log on today, all the way from all over the country. Positivity, I get that, Sandra. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to all the people who are listening on our Facebook Live. And have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Love you all. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks
Bye.
again.